Dear Vanessa, I'm pleased to welcome you to the International ORP Foundation Executive Interview Series 2025. The series featured global leaders in occupational health and safety, and this year is particularly special as we celebrate 25 years of the International ORP Foundation. Vanessa, we're so excited to have you with us today.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today.
Thank you so much. So, before we start, let me take a brief moment to introduce you to our audience. So, today we have the honor of speaking with Vanessa Harwood-Whitcher, the Chief Executive of the Institution of Occupational Safety and Health. Vanessa's career has been dedicated to empowering professionals through education, skill development, and capacity building initiatives. Vanessa has been instrumental in advancing professional standards in workplace health and safety. Vanessa, does everything sound correct?
That absolutely does, yes.
Excellent. So, before we dive in, let's give our audience a quick roadmap of what's ahead. So, we will start by exploring professional standards in workplace safety. Then we will talk tech and see how artificial intelligence is reshaping the way businesses operate. Next, we will zoom in on workplace culture. And finally, we will wrap up by discussing the role of collaboration. Vanessa, are we ready to start?
Absolutely. Fire away.
Great. So, setting high professional standards is crucial for driving real change in organizations worldwide. Vanessa, as Chief Executive of the Institution of Occupational Safety and Health, you lead one of the most influential professional bodies dedicated to workplace health and safety. Therefore, what are some of the key initiatives you have championed to strengthen professional standards in workplace safety?
Oh, thanks. Well, I mean, professional standards are why IOSH exists. So our vision is a safe and healthy world of work. And our current strategy, which is for a 5-year period, is called Activate 2028. And a key strand of that, so a strategic objective, is really about driving excellence and expertise of occupational safety and health professionals and really helping them to improve global standards across the world in OSH. So it's absolutely front and central to our strategy. Obviously, it's really fantastic that in 2022 the ILO looked to the safe and healthy working environment and making that a fundamental principle and right at work. And that's actually something that IOSH had championed for years. So we're really keen not only to promote the professional standards of the people that are carrying out occupational safety and health, but also those who are setting the context for that. So governments, for example, they must really recognise and adopt the fundamental principle and right at work. And IOSH takes a lot of time and effort to advocate for that. We do lots of things. So, for example, we joined the Global Coalition for Social Justice. So we're working with governments, with employers, with worker organisations, the UN agencies, non-governmental organisations, again, right around the world, really trying to accelerate progress around the Sustainable Development Goals, helping people to understand that decent work plays a part in that, and then again, trying to understand more about how occupational safety and health can drive decent work. So we also do things like we set professional standards for occupational safety and health professionals through our competency framework. So we give guidance as to what we think good looks like, and then we train and we qualify people through to those competency standards, and then ultimately people can become recognised members of IOSH through that. So really, it's just about anything that you can think of to do with professional standards, IOSH has some level of influence around the world in.
This is such an ambitious vision. And building up on this, what advice would you give to small and medium-sized businesses looking to elevate their safety standards?
It's really hard, I think, for small and medium-sized businesses, but absolutely critical that they do look after their people. You know, decent work doesn't just happen in global multinationals. I think the key thing is trying to see that for small businesses, it's not just about compliance with the law. Obviously, that's really important and we encourage that. But actually, if you really want a productive workforce, if you want to retain talent, that's expensive to find and replace, then actually going beyond compliance, really looking at the health, safety and well-being of your employees is actually fundamental to being productive, to keeping your costs down, and ultimately to drive your business efficiency and effectiveness. So it makes good sense as a business. So yeah, we'd really encourage smaller businesses to look at that. I think the other thing to say is that a lot of small businesses are often in supply chains for larger organisations. So there might well be an element of the larger organisations demanding that small businesses look at health and safety and make sure that it's fundamentally part of the way that they work. So it may be opportunities to win more business in that sense as well. So again, IOSH has loads of advice and guidance for smaller organisations. So we're eager to talk to people no matter what sized organisation they work in.
Thank you so much for sharing such an insightful perspective. And as we move on, let's zoom in on artificial intelligence. It's reshaping industries across the board, and occupational safety is no exception. Vanessa, are there any specific artificial intelligence-driven tools you find particularly helpful in managing occupational health and safety?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are many elements around artificial intelligence that are game changers for occupational safety and health. But I think firstly, I'd just like to sort of talk about what that means for our profession, for organisations that are thinking of adopting AI. It's like any kind of business change, there's opportunity in that and there's risk. And I guess what IOSH is advocating for is a really person-centred adoption around AI. So bringing health and safety experts in at the beginning of the journey of adopting any type of AI is really helpful, because they will be able to see what potential risks might be coming out of that. And again, putting people into the heart of that means that the adoption will be done in a sensible way. I mean, I've sort of recently experienced some really fantastic live examples of how AI is being used. So I went to an event recently at the House of Lords, so in the UK Parliament, where there was a demonstration on how AI is being used to support risk assessments around critical infrastructure projects within the UK. So it involves people that are not health and safety professionals, but using AI, they can hold up their phone, look at a hole that's being dug in the road, maybe to put electricity cables in or something along those lines, and they can talk through the phone to give a commentary about what they're seeing. That data is then sent back to an AI database that starts to then generate advice and guidance for how to safely work when the risks are being talked about and when they're being videoed over the mobile phone. So it has the element to be able to take in lots of sort of localized conditions. So actually what's happening on that day, so the weather, traffic conditions, if you're digging a hole in the road and it's very busy around. So all of those kind of things can make a much more informed risk assessment and really help people that maybe don't have expertise in health and safety just to work safer. It's just one example. I think automation, robotics, they can really remove the need for doing dangerous jobs altogether. So it has such potential. It's just making sure that health and safety professionals collaborate with other people in businesses to make sure it's adopted sensibly.
It is so true. Artificial intelligence and automation have so much potential.
Yeah.
And what challenges do companies face when trying to integrate artificial intelligence into their safety programs?
I think it's like all change, isn't it, in technology. It sometimes there's an over-optimism about what it can do, or maybe people are not thinking through the consequences of doing that, so not seeing the risks that I was talking about. It might just be fear of adoption of that technology as well. So if it's workers that are perhaps using that technology for the first time, they may not be skilled in doing that. It might cause harm as a result of people not being skilled to use, or they might just be afraid of using that technology. There are lots of myths, I think, around AI and misunderstandings about what it is and what it can do. So education, I think, is also a really big part of bringing in AI into organisations and helping people to understand how to use that as part of their jobs in a sort of risk-assessed way.
These are some great points, could not agree more. And now let's switch gears and focus on the importance of workplace culture. Vanessa, you have been a strong advocate for inclusion, well-being, and personal growth within organization. That's why I'm curious. What is your opinion on people-centered, social, sustainable organizational culture?
Yeah, I mean, again, this is absolutely part of our strategy, Activate 2028. So we see sort of equality, diversity and inclusion as being a fundamental part of safety culture, because actually if you can come to work and feel safe and valued for who you are and what you are, that creates psychological safety and that enables you to not only feel safe, but obviously act safely as well. So there is an inextricable link between EDI and a good health and safety culture. I think the other element of our strategy that we're really focusing on is social sustainability. So that is all about creating work that's sustainable, recognising the value of workers and how to invest in them, showing people how to create conditions for decent work, and actually making the case to business that all of that underpins the way that corporations perform. And actually, if you get that right, you get real business success out of that. It's really unfortunate because we obviously talk a lot with our 50,000 members around the world and try to get their insight and their intelligence for what's actually going on in their workplaces. And back in 2022, we did a survey with UK members of IOSH. And they told us that 2 in 5 of the respondents don't trust that their employers actually have health and safety in mind or their support in mind, particularly mental health as well as physical health. So that's quite concerning, actually, that people are going to work and not feeling like their employers want to protect them. So we are doing an awful lot around social sustainability, explaining the value of human capital with business, because we think if businesses create the right environment, then it can create a good culture and ultimately that helps employees do good jobs. So it makes sense, doesn't it?
For sure, this really resonates. And building up on this, I would like to ask if you have any example of the company which has successfully adopted a people-centered approach.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many. I probably better not name check too many of them, but I'm just thinking back to when I was talking about smaller businesses and working in supply chain. So we've been working for a very large clothing manufacturer, a global clothing manufacturer that have a number of factories that are producing the clothing mainly in Asia. And so they've been setting the standards from headquarters about what they'd like to see, but they're actually working all the way through their supply chain, really trying to sort of encourage the factories that are independently owned and maybe smaller businesses in some cases to adopt those standards. So the whole of the supply chain is really trying to adopt that social sustainability approach. And we've been working with them for about 2 years now, maybe 3 years, and they've been measuring the impact of that. So they actually have tangible business impact from that. So around productivity, around cost savings, because obviously there's less lost time because of reduced numbers of accidents and injuries. So, there's a real business case around that. And that's mirrored around the world with lots of the work that we do at IOSH.
Thank you so much for sharing this example. And based on everything we have discussed so far, it's clear that collaboration is key. This year, we're proud to celebrate our 25th anniversary of the International ORP Foundation in Cartagena de Indias, Colombia. So I would like to ask, how do you think gatherings like these contribute to advancing global occupational health and safety practices?
Well, firstly, congratulations on your 25 years anniversary. That's absolutely fantastic to hear. I mean, for IOSH, we fundamentally believe in collaboration. I think the power of coming together just can't be beaten. you can't achieve a safe and healthy world of work without coming together. We certainly can't do that on our own. So partnerships with people like yourselves, you know, like-minded organisations, we can just work together, you know, looking at really what the issues are that we share, that we're trying to tackle, and how we can come together to manage them. You know, the world of work's changing, and we need to help our profession stay ahead of the curve and help their organisations. So from learning from each other in those collaborations to putting together initiatives, sharing good practice, you know, it's endless really the advantages of doing that. So we really value our relationship with you. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of some other things that we're collaborating on together. So there's a global initiative on Safety, Health and Wellbeing Expo in Osaka that's coming up in the summer. It's a really good example of how we're working with a number of different organisations with yourselves to really try and look at new knowledge, build new connections, you know, share our organisation's objectives, our networks, and kind of knowledge and information, and get that out to as many people as we can do. So, and we wouldn't be able to do that, I think, if we didn't collaborate together.
For sure. The exchange of ideas is so inspiring. And how can we ensure that the momentum from such events continues afterward?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's about keeping that dialogue going, isn't it? So hopefully we start conversations at those sorts of collaborations, but I think putting follow-on events to that, you know, holding things like webinars that we do together, you know, particularly for IOSH with our sort of 50,000 members across the world. We ask them to take part in continuing professional development, so making sure that the topics that are shared at collaborative events like that are then examined, explored as part of people's continuing development is really important. You know, we take key messages out of that back into businesses, back into governments, some of the non-governmental work that we do as well. So it's really about continuing that conversation all the time. And I think if we have a shared idea of what good looks like, that's a really powerful message that has legs.
Vanessa, thank you so much. This has been such an insightful and engaging discussion. And before we close, do you have any final thoughts or words of advice to our audience?
Yeah, I think keep going, have courage, because the work that we do in occupational safety and health means something. So sometimes I know we can feel quite overlooked as a profession, but you know, organisations like ourselves, we have your back. We will represent you in the most important places in the world, and be confident really that your voice and your messages are heard.
This is such a bold advice. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And thanks to our audience for joining us. Last but not least, I would like to remind everyone that the 25th anniversary of the International ORP Foundation is just around the corner. Stay safe, stay engaged, and follow our official channels for more inspiring interviews like this. Bye-bye!